At 30,000 feet, the world feels distant, like the planet itself has gone mute. Inside Flight 472, a 737 bound from Seattle to Dallas, laughter, conversation, and the hum of engines formed a soothing rhythm that made people forget how fragile flight really is. Until everything went quiet. It started with a flicker on the cockpit dashboard, a small, almost invisible pulse of static across the comms. Captain frowned and tapped the radio toggle. Seattle Center, this is Delta 472, level 300, confirm radio check. No answer. He tried again, still silence. The first officer leaned forward, adjusting the frequency. Maybe we slipped out of range. Shook his head. At 30,000, not a chance. A low alarm tone chirped. Navigation data syncing error. The weather radar blinked, then died. The transponder went offline. For 30 tense seconds, the cockpit filled with an eerie stillness, punctuated only by the steady roar of engines outside. Then the first officer's voice cracked. "Sir, we just lost comms entirely." Hand tightened around the yoke. Switched to emergency frequency 121.5. Nothing but static. Down in the cabin, the passengers began to feel it. The air had changed. The friendly chime of the sign didn't sound right anymore. It echoed. Conversations faded as a subtle anxiety rippled through the rows. In seat 12A, a young woman with dark hair tucked neatly under a baseball cap opened her eyes slowly. She'd been pretending to sleep, but now her senses sharpened like a hawk's. Her fingers brushed against a small black earpiece hidden in her jacket pocket. She didn't move right away. Instead, she listened to the hum of engines, the faint pulse of static leaking from overhead speakers, and something else, a low, rhythmic interference signal, almost like a coded beat. Her training kicked in immediately. She'd heard that signal before. Without drawing attention, she pressed the earpiece into her ear and whispered, "Raptor lead, do you copy?" Silence. Then through the static, a distorted male voice answered, "Identify yourself." Her voice didn't tremble. "This is Ghost Rider." The other end went quiet, dead quiet. At that exact moment, two F-22 Raptors streaking on a training mission over Nevada received a priority alert from NORAD. Unresponsive civilian aircraft, possible comms failure heading southbound. Intercept. Captain Daniel Miller, call sign Viper, adjusted his throttle, eyes narrowing. Raptor 2, form up. We're checking out a silent bird over Sector 6. Roger that, came the reply. Within minutes, the two fighter jets closed in on the 737, positioning themselves on either side. Their radar confirmed a live aircraft with zero communication response. Standard intercept procedures called for visual identification. Miller rolled slightly left, catching a glimpse of the pilot through the 737's window, hands moving, mouths talking, but clearly they couldn't transmit. Then his headset crackled, once, twice, and a faint female voice came through their encrypted military channel. "Raptor lead, hold formation." Miller froze, that voice, calm, confident, commanding. He turned to his wingman. "Did you copy that?" "Affirmative," came the stunned reply. "But sir, who the hell uses Ghost Rider anymore?" Miller's stomach dropped. Ghost Rider was more than a call sign. It was a legend in the Air Force, a name tied to classified missions, unconfirmed victories, and a pilot who supposedly died 5 years ago during a covert crash in the Middle East. Every pilot had heard of her. None had ever met her. He switched to a private frequency. "Ghost Rider, this is Raptor lead. Identify yourself." The voice came again, steady as steel. "Captain Hart, authorization code Echo 79. You have an electronic jammer attached to that civilian aircraft's fuselage. Confirm visual." Miller's breath caught. "Repeat, ma'am." "Captain Hart, you were killed in action," she finished for him, voice soft but firm. "That's what they told you. Now listen to me carefully, Captain. Someone doesn't want this plane to reach Dallas, and they're using technology that was never supposed to leave a classified lab. Miller looked again at the passenger jet gliding peacefully below him. Nothing seemed out of place, yet his radar still flickered strangely. He exhaled, jaw tight. "Understood, Ghost Rider, you have our attention." And somewhere inside that quiet plane heart, the woman the U.S. Air Force had buried in silence opened her eyes fully, her pulse steady as steel. The sky wasn't silent anymore. It was listening. Captain Daniel Miller's F-22 cut through the thin Nevada air like a blade, sunlight bouncing off its titanium skin. His gloved hand hovered above the comm switch, his pulse steady but his mind spinning. Ghost Rider. That call sign hadn't been heard in half a decade. His wingman, Lieutenant Chase Reaper Morgan, flew tight formation beside him. "Sir, did she just say Ghost Rider?" "She did," Miller replied, eyes fixed on the civilian jet below. "But that's impossible. Ghost Rider died in 2020. Blackout mission, file sealed." "Then who's flying coach on that 737? Miller didn't answer. His radar flickered again, static, interference, then clear. The signal was being jammed, just like she'd said. Whoever this woman was, she wasn't bluffing. Inside Flight 472, Hart, Ghost Rider, moved quietly down the aisle, her movements precise, controlled. To the other passengers, she was just another traveler. Only the sharp glint of something metallic on her wrist, a small encrypted data band, hinted otherwise. She stopped by the emergency exit, eyes scanning the floor paneling near the rear galley. Beneath it, she could almost feel the faint vibration of the hidden device, the same signal she'd helped design years ago. Her voice was calm as she whispered into her concealed mic. "Raptor lead, I'm confirming signal origin. Advise visual check under the aft fuselage." Miller adjusted his HUD and zoomed. "Copy. Scanning, wait, there it is." His tone sharpened. "External object detected near cargo bay, magnetic latch, no transponder." "Then it's one of ours," said softly. "Only military jammers use that design. Someone installed it mid-maintenance." Reaper's disbelief crackled over the comm. "You're saying a U.S. military device was planted on a passenger flight?" "Not the U.S. military," corrected. "Meridian." Miller's chest tightened. "Project Meridian, that program was shut down after your crash." "Was it?" Her voice carried a hint of bitterness. "I was the crash." Silence hung in the radio channel like fog. Miller's thoughts raced. He remembered fragments from classified briefings. Project Meridian had been a defense research initiative developing electronic warfare systems capable of cloaking aircraft from radar and satellite detection. The lead pilot on those tests, Captain Hart, call sign Ghost Rider, a prodigy, a phantom, and officially a casualty. Now she was talking to him from a commercial airliner mid-sky. Miller steadied his breathing. "What's your objective, ma'am?" "Keep these people alive long enough for the truth to surface," she replied. "That jammer's transmitting an encrypted frequency meant to trigger NORAD's defense algorithms. If it reaches threshold, your Raptors will get flagged as hostile." Reaper cursed. "They're setting us up." "Exactly," said. "Someone wants a friendly fire incident they can spin as pilot error. Then Project Meridian's failure becomes your blame, not theirs." Miller swallowed hard. "Who's behind this?" "You'll get that answer when we land. For now, cover me." Down in the cabin, knelt near the service hatch, a flight attendant frowned. "Ma'am, you can't." "Air Force Intelligence," said, flashing a badge so genuine it silenced the woman instantly. She pulled back the panel with practiced ease, revealing wires glowing faint blue. Her heart clenched. She built that signature herself. "They're using my design," she murmured. Above, Miller's voice came through again. "NORAD just pinged us, asking why our IFF signals are fluctuating. They think we're compromised." "Keep them talking," replied. "I'm disconnecting power." She cut one wire, the lights flickered. A hum filled the fuselage. The passengers gasped. "Almost there," she whispered. Then silence again, but this time the static cleared. "Flight 472, this is Seattle Center, we read you. Do you copy?" Cheers erupted in the cockpit. The captain exhaled, relief flooding his face. But didn't smile. She knew too much. Whoever planted that jammer wasn't trying to crash the plane, they were testing her, seeing if Ghost Rider was still out there. She sat back in 12A, eyes fixed on the horizon as the F-22s flanked them like silent guardians. And deep down, Captain Miller knew it too. The ghost wasn't gone. She'd just been waiting for the right sky to haunt again. Captain Daniel Miller flew in tense silence. The civilian jet below looked peaceful against the desert sky, yet every instinct told him something dark was moving beneath its calm surface. He'd escorted dozens of aircraft in distress, but never one carrying a dead legend. "Raptor lead," his voice came over the encrypted channel, calm as a whisper in a storm. "I need you to reroute your sensor array to 54.9 megahertz. That's Meridian's secondary frequency. If it's active, we're not alone up here." Miller keyed the sequence. Static flared, then a faint pulse appeared on his HUD, steady, mechanical, deliberate. "Confirmed, I'm reading it. Source triangulates, 50 miles southeast of our position." "That's Groom Lake," said quietly. "Area 51's outer testing zone." Reaper's voice broke in, uneasy. "You're saying this jammer came from inside a classified facility?" His tone didn't waver, from someone who still has access. Down in the cabin, she steadied herself against turbulence as the plane banked slightly. Her reflection in the window showed, eyes too alert for someone who'd supposedly died 5 years ago. She pulled a small data chip from her bracelet, the only remnant of her past life. Her mind slipped back to that night in 2020, the mission over the Persian Gulf. Project Meridian's prototype cloaking system had failed mid-flight. She'd watched her instruments burn red, alarms shrieking, fuel leaking, before her aircraft vanished from every radar. Officially, she'd been lost over hostile waters. In truth, she'd ejected, rescued by a covert recovery team that didn't belong to any branch she recognized. They offered her a choice: disappear or die for real. She chose disappearance. For years, she'd hidden under new identities, moving through intelligence networks like a ghost, watching Meridian's technology spread into the wrong hands. Until today. "Captain Miller," she said, returning to the moment, "that jammer isn't just a signal blocker. It's a transmitter. It's feeding data to Meridian's archive, flight patterns, radar behavior, response times. They're running a live field test using innocent lives as cover." Miller clenched his jaw. "That's treason." "Yes," said, "and it started the day they decided some weapons were too profitable to stay secret." Reaper exhaled sharply. "What do you need from us, ma'am?" "Protect the perimeter. If the feed completes, they'll trigger a detonation sequence. I can't let that happen." She moved back toward the galley, ignoring the stares of frightened passengers. "You can't be here," a flight attendant whispered. "I can," said, "and I have to." She knelt, tools in hand, working the panel open again. Her fingers were steady, but her heart pounded. One wrong wire could ignite the device. Sweat gathered at her temple. "Talk to me, Raptor lead. What's your visual?" "Still clear," Miller said, "but Groom Lake's tower just went dark. They know we're watching." "Then they'll send something," murmured. Outside, the horizon shimmered with heat. For a brief second, Miller saw movement, 2 blips rising fast from the desert floor. Contact, 2 unknown aircraft launching, low altitude, high acceleration. Reaper's voice cracked. "They're not on any registry." Froze mid-wire. "Meridian interceptors," she said, almost to herself. "Automated drones. They'll jam everything in a 10-mile radius." "Ghost Rider, what's your plan?" Miller asked. She looked out the cabin window. The drones were climbing, dark specks growing larger by the second. "You're my eyes, Captain. Buy me 30 seconds." Miller tightened formation, dropping altitude to shield the 737. Copy that. Inside, cut the last wire. The jammer powered down with a dying hiss. Then she slid the chip from her bracelet into the exposed port. Data streamed, lines of code racing. Uploading corruption protocol, she whispered. A faint click, a spark, then silence. Signal lost, Miller reported. They're blind. Exhaled. Good. Then maybe now we can make them listen. For the first time in years, her heart slowed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. The sky above Nevada burned with noon light as the two F-22 Raptors broke formation, wings slicing through the thin desert air. The peaceful blue had turned hostile. Something unseen lurked beyond the radar. Raptor lead, I've got eyes on them, Reaper shouted. Two drones inbound, moving at Mach 1.2, closing fast. Miller squinted, HUD flickering with strange distortions. The drones were sleek, matte black, almost invisible against the horizon. Confirmed visuals, he said. Unmarked frames, that's Meridian tech. Inside Flight 472, Hart stood in the aisle, gripping the headrest of the seat in front of her as turbulence hit. The passengers gasped. Through the small window, she could see glints of movement, too sharp, too fast to be birds. Raptor lead, they're deploying active jamming, she said into her mic. You'll lose GPS in 20 seconds. Switch to inertial nav. Already on it, Miller replied, banking left. Reaper, take high altitude, flank their 6. Reaper climbed, vapor trails spiraling behind him. The two drones split apart like synchronized hunters. Miller's radar blipped and died. I've got nothing, they're ghosting. His pulse spiked. Then we do this the old way, she said. Manual targeting, watch their exhaust lines, they'll shimmer right before they engage. Miller smirked despite the chaos. You've done this before. I designed them, Captain. I know their heartbeat. That sentence sent a chill through him. These machines, the very ones hunting them, were her creation. Down below, the passengers clung to their seats. The flight attendants tried to calm them, but fear had spread like wildfire. Steadied herself, whispering a prayer she hadn't said in years. Outside, the first drone fired a burst of electronic countermeasures. Miller's jet shuddered. EMP pulse incoming, he warned. Keep them away from the civilians, she yelled. Reaper dove from above, releasing a flare spread to draw the pulse. The sky flashed white, static crackling across every headset. Miller's systems rebooted. Reaper, report. I'm good, came the strained reply. But that second drone's locking onto the 737. Felt her throat tighten. Captain, they won't risk missiles near civilians. They'll use disruption instead. They'll stall our engines. How do we stop them? By beating them to their own code. She reached into her jacket, pulling out a small metallic drive. There's an override key embedded in my data chip, manual activation only, but I'll need a clean signal path to link. You're on a commercial plane in flight, Miller snapped. How do you plan to? Through your comms relay. Patch me directly into your targeting computer. Miller hesitated only a second. Understood, Channel 7 secure. Inserted the drive into her wristband's port and typed a rapid sequence on her small tablet. Lines of code scrolled. I'm inside their command feed, she said, transmitting false telemetry. Their AI will think they've hit the target already. The drones suddenly veered off course, climbing in opposite directions. Miller blinked. They're disengaging. For now, replied, but they'll reboot in 2 minutes. Reaper's voice cut in tense. Ma'am, why do these things respond to you like they know your voice? Stared out the window, her reflection calm but her eyes distant. Because they do. Meridian's AI was voice-trained to its creator. My voice was the final authorization layer. Miller exhaled sharply. You mean? Yes, she said quietly. They won't stop until they've erased the one thing that can still shut them down. The radio hissed again, NORAD command demanding updates. Miller ignored it. "We've got 2 minutes. What's the play, Ghost Rider?" His gaze hardened. "We take the fight to them. If Meridian wants a test, we'll give them one. You'll draw their fire. I'll fry their control uplink." Reaper groaned. "You're gonna start a war in U.S. airspace." His lips curved into a cold half-smile. "No, I'm going to end one that never officially began." Outside, the drones looped back toward them, sunlight glinting off their wings like blades. The F-22s roared ahead to intercept. And somewhere between heaven and earth, the ghost of a buried project prepared to rise again, this time not as a weapon, but as its reckoning. The sky above Nevada had turned into a battlefield of shadows and light. The black drones, nearly invisible against the sun-bleached horizon, closed in on Flight 472 with mechanical precision. The passengers remained blissfully unaware, gripping armrests and whispering prayers, while outside, death and chaos danced in tandem with the clouds. Captain Daniel Miller's F-22 strained against the turbulence, engines roaring. "Reaper, stay close to the 737. Don't let them lock on." Reaper's voice was tense. "Copy lead, but these drones, they anticipate every maneuver." Miller's hands gripped the controls. His eyes darted across the HUD, scanning for the shimmer in the air that betrayed the drone's presence. Every second mattered. If the drone struck, the blast radius would endanger the very civilians they were protecting. Inside the cabin, Hart's fingers flew over her wristband keyboard, lines of code reflected in her glasses. "Raptor lead, I'm in their neural network feed," she said. "Uploading a false telemetry loop now. They'll think they've engaged the target." Miller glanced at the jet's instruments. The first drone hesitated, its trajectory wavering. "They're responding to her code. Ghost Rider, you're controlling them." Didn't answer. Her jaw was tight, eyes scanning for the slightest anomaly. "They'll reboot in 60 seconds. Then it's down to speed and agility. Prep for evasive maneuvers." Reaper's Raptor veered sharply, baiting the second drone to follow. Sparks of static flashed across his HUD. "They're aggressive. How is she doing this?" His lips pressed together. "Meridian built them to obey their creator's voice patterns. They recognize mine. Every command, every override, it's my authority encoded into their AI. I'm their lock and their key." The first drone fired a burst of electromagnetic interference, cracking the 737's radar display, and his co-pilot fought to stabilize the plane. "What the hell is going on?" the co-pilot muttered. "Trust me," said softly, her eyes fixed on the panel beneath her. She disconnected a minor wire from the jammer, allowing her override chip to take full control. Sparks flickered. A low hum of power coursed through the aircraft. Miller watched as the first drone wavered and then veered sharply away, smoke trailing. The second drone paused mid-flight, algorithms confused. His face remained stoic, but her pulse quickened. "Not done yet," she murmured. The F-22s adjusted formation, circling the civilian jet protectively. Miller keyed his calm. "Ghost Rider, you just saved hundreds of lives, but what's your endgame?" Exhaled slowly. "Expose Meridian, end their clandestine tests, make sure no one else suffers under their experiments." Reaper's voice trembled slightly. You're alive. Everyone thought you were dead." His gaze hardened. "They wanted the world to forget me, but ghosts have a way of returning when the timing's right." Below, the passengers began noticing strange movements in the cockpit. A flight attendant whispered nervously, gave a calm smile. "We're safe, for now." The two F-22s continued to maneuver, keeping the drones at bay. Miller could hardly believe what he was witnessing. A single civilian plane, piloted by a woman everyone assumed dead, neutralizing military-grade drones designed for lethal interception. His mind raced. She needed the plane to land safely. She keyed a secondary sequence. "Override complete. They'll shut down in 30 seconds. Sparks flickered along the small black box, then went silent. "Signal lost," Miller reported over the comms, awe in his voice. Exhaled, slumping slightly in her seat. "Good, for now the ghosts rest." The desert sky above Nevada returned to calm, the hum of engines the only sound. But somewhere inside, Project Meridian's operators had just realized. The woman they had tried to erase was alive, and she had just outsmarted them. Miller's voice broke the tense silence. "Ghost Rider, I need you to know we owe you everything." Smiled faintly. "No, Captain, you owe the truth its chance." And for the first time in years, the legend that everyone thought was dead, Ghost Rider, had shown herself to the world. The desert stretched endlessly below Flight 472, but inside the cockpit and cabin, tension still crackled like static electricity. The immediate threat of the Meridian drones had passed, but the danger wasn't over. The F-22 Raptors continued to circle the civilian jet, engines humming in protective formation. Captain Daniel Miller broke the silence. "Ghost Rider, I need you to explain something. You were declared KIA 5 years ago. Then somehow you survive, reappear, and neutralize drones built to follow your commands." Hart leaned against the rear galley hatch, her eyes still scanning the plane's instruments. "They wanted the world to believe I was gone. It made Project Meridian easier to hide. I faked my death during a failed overseas test. I was rescued by a covert team loyal to the Air Force, not the project itself. From that moment I became a ghost, living, yes, but erased from every official record." Reaper's voice trembled over the secure channel. "You mean everything we knew, your missions, your awards, all gone?" "Yes," said softly. "I existed only as a file in the secret archives, accessible to a handful of people. But Meridian never forgot me. They used my own designs to create drones, jammers, stealth AI. Everything in their arsenal bears my fingerprint. Today, they wanted to test those weapons on an unarmed civilian plane to see if anyone could stop them." Miller exhaled sharply. "And you did. You controlled them, using your voice as a command key. That's impossible. Military AI isn't supposed to recognize a single human like that." His lips curved into a faint, grim smile. "I designed them to obey me. It's the fail-safe they never thought anyone would trigger. A signature authorization embedded in my vocal pattern. Without it, they're just drones hunting a target. With it, they're blind and helpless." Reaper muttered, "You're basically the only person who can shut Meridian down." "Exactly," said. "Which is why they planted the jammer on this plane to lure me out, to see if Ghost Rider still existed. And now, I know the full extent of what they're willing to risk." Miller's jaw tightened. "So this isn't just an isolated incident. Meridian's alive, active, and testing weapons on American airspace." His eyes darkened. "And they've done it before, they've covered every trace. But today they made a mistake, they underestimated me. And you too." The two F-22 pilots exchanged looks, disbelief clear in their expressions. "All this," Miller said slowly, "on a commercial flight with innocent civilians aboard." "Yes," replied, "and the passengers have no idea how close they came to being collateral in a secret war that never officially existed. That's why I can't let anyone else fall victim. Not now. Not ever." A moment of silence passed, the kind that stretches when the weight of truth is almost too heavy to bear. Miller swallowed hard. "You should been dead. You were erased. And yet here you are. Ghost Rider is real, and she's alive." His eyes softened slightly. "Legends aren't supposed to disappear. They just wait for the right moment to return." Reaper's voice cracked again. "So what now? Do we go after Meridian?" Shook her head. "Not yet. First, we ensure everyone on this flight lands safely. After that, we start dismantling the system from within, step by step." Miller nodded, a sense of awe settling over him. "I can't believe we're flying with a ghost, a real one." His gaze swept over the cabin, over the passengers who remained blissfully unaware. "The sky doesn't forgive mistakes," she said softly, but it also remembers those who fight to protect it. As the F-22s flanked the 737, the aircraft descended toward Air Force Base, the hum of engines filling the tense silence. Somewhere in the shadows of Nevada, Meridian's operatives were surely watching, unaware that the woman they had tried to erase was now fully awake and ready to fight back. Ghost Rider was no longer a secret, she was a force. And the war that was never acknowledged was just beginning. The Nevada desert stretched endless beneath Flight 472, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the dry scrubland. Emergency vehicles lined the runways at Air Force Base, engines idling, lights flashing, soldiers in tactical gear waiting for orders. Captain tightened his grip on the yoke, his co-pilot pale and silent. "Brace for landing," he muttered. The F-22s flanked them on either side, silent sentinels, scanning the sky for any rogue signals. Inside, the passengers were wide-eyed, sensing something extraordinary. A young boy whispered to his mother, pointing at the jets outside, "Mom, are those fighter planes?" The mother's jaw dropped. I think so, but why are there two of them escorting us?" Hart stayed seated, calm, eyes scanning the aircraft systems. She had done her job above the desert. Now came the reckoning. The moment that had haunted her since faking her death was approaching. The world she left behind, the people who had declared her gone, were waiting on the tarmac. Reaper's voice cut through her earpiece. "Lead, they're clearing the runway for you. Ghost Rider, we've got visual on base command. They're going to want answers fast." Exhaled softly. "I know, time to face the living." As the 737's wheels kissed the runway, emergency crews surged forward, military personnel rushing toward the plane. Cameras from news crews hidden behind barricades caught every moment, though they had no idea what had truly unfolded at 30,000 feet. The plane taxied to a stop. Soldiers surrounded the aircraft, weapons drawn but pointed downward. A tall man in a crisp Air Force uniform stepped forward, general, face stern, eyes narrowing as he recognized the pilot stepping out. Emerged first, wind whipping her dark hair across her face. Her Air Force badge gleamed in the fatting sun. Silence fell across the base. "Captain Hart," the general said, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "You're alive." "I am," she said evenly, stepping closer. "And I'm here to make sure that Meridian's tests don't endanger anyone else." The crowd have snapped to attention. Some whispered among themselves. "Ghost Rider," someone breathed, the legendary call sign spoken aloud for the first time in 5 years. Miller and Reaper landed beside the 737, engines shutting down. Miller removed his helmet, bowing slightly. "Ma'am, it's an honor. We thought you were gone." His gaze swept over the pilots, the base, and the waiting emergency teams. "Legends aren't meant to vanish," she said. "They wait for the right moment to return. Today, I return to protect lives." The passengers, finally allowed to leave the plane, gawked at the military activity around them. One man muttered to his wife, voice trembling, "Did that woman save us?" Didn't answer. She had other business. She handed the black box, the jammer and override device, to General. "This," she said, "is why you need to rethink how Meridian operates. They've weaponized my work, and they won't stop until someone enforces accountability." Held it cautiously, eyes wide. "You mean this was all part of a test?" Nodded. "A test that would have killed innocent people if I hadn't been on board. It's time to dismantle the program from the inside, and I intend to see that happen." The general exhaled slowly. "Captain, you've changed everything. We thought you were dead. You've saved hundreds today." Allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "I didn't come back for praise. I came back to finish what was started. Ghost Rider doesn't vanish, and neither do the truths we bury." The sun sank lower over the desert, casting long shadows across Air Force Base. F-22s roared overhead in salute as walked past the waiting crowd, her legend now fully revealed. The world had assumed she was gone. But Ghost Rider had returned. And she wasn't leaving. The desert night settled over Air Force Base, the sky a deep, ink-black canvas punctuated by stars. The hum of engines had faded, leaving only the quiet murmur of stunned onlookers and the occasional click of camera shutters capturing what would soon be classified history. Hart stood on the tarmac, silhouetted by the setting sun, wind tugging at her jacket. The passengers had been escorted to safety, yet their wide-eyed expressions lingered in her mind. They didn't know the scale of what had just happened, but they knew one thing: they had survived against impossible odds. Captain Daniel Miller approached, removing his helmet, sweat glistening on his brow. "Ma'am, you've done the impossible," he said quietly. "I've flown countless missions, but I've never seen anything like this." Allowed herself a faint smile. "Impossible is just a perspective, Captain. Today, I simply followed the sky." Behind them, General was coordinating with his staff, his face taut with disbelief and lingering awe. The black box, the jammer and override device, lay on the tarmac, now evidence of both the peril they had faced and the heroism that had saved hundreds of lives. "Captain Hart," said, voice steady but heavy with emotion, "you were declared dead. All records state you were KIA. How do we reconcile this?" His gaze hardened. "You reconcile it by acknowledging the truth, General. Project Meridian has been weaponizing technology designed for defense and turning it into something dangerous, even inside the United States. I'm alive to make sure that stops." Reaper, standing nearby, shook his head in disbelief. "You disappeared 5 years ago. The Air Force mourned you. And now here you are, controlling drones with your voice, saving civilians, facing an entire secret operation alone." His voice faltered. "I don't even have words." "Then don't try," replied. "Actions speak louder than words, and actions are what I came back for." The passengers, now safely escorted to the base perimeter, watched with awe as the story unfolded before them. A woman they assumed to be an ordinary traveler had been a ghost, a legend, a savior. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Some were frightened, some were grateful, and all were mesmerized. Turned her gaze skyward. The F-22s, now idle on the tarmac, gleamed under the moonlight. They had been both shield and witness to her return. Miller and Reaper stood by, silent, acknowledging the woman who had just rewritten history. She exhaled. "The sky doesn't forgive mistakes. It remembers those who protect it, and Meridian won't disappear quietly. I've made my mark, but the real work begins now, ensuring accountability, transparency, and that no one else is ever used as a test subject." Nodded slowly. "I understand, and the Air Force will support you. Your return, it changes everything." His eyes softened. "I didn't return for recognition. I returned to remind people that heroes never truly disappear. We wait, we adapt, we rise again when the time is right." The desert wind whispered past her, carrying the faint scent of engines and dust, a reminder that every mission leaves a mark. Somewhere, deep within the shadows of Meridian, her adversaries would learn this truth soon enough. The ghost they thought dead was fully awake. A young cadet standing near the tarmac finally spoke, voice trembling. "Ma'am, are you really Ghost Rider?" Looked down at him, eyes steady and unwavering. "Once. But now the call sign belongs to every pilot who refuses to quit, every soul who fights when others flee. Remember that." The stars above shimmered, reflecting in her gaze. Somewhere, a new fighter jet in a secret hangar bore a freshly painted name: Ghost Rider II. The legend that had been buried in silence, feared lost, now walked among the living. And in the hearts of those who witnessed it, the story would never fade. Ghost Rider had returned. The sky had remembered her. And so had the world.